amplifier. They threw a MOSFET power section.
Yeah.
The thing is gold. It sounds incredible. I've wanted one for a long time. A lot of my favorite thrash and black metal bands have used the T2. And then when they came out with the V2 with the little EQ section, I like those too, but I got EQs I throw in the effects loop sometimes. Little secret there, just to get a tighter sound. So you don't have to have it right on the head unit, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, Randalls are my go-tos. I got my mini Hiwatt back here.
Yep.
I love that little 5-watt. That's my recording amp when I'm not playing the, you know, really super heavy stuff. The Hiwatt does it all.
Yeah.
It's a great amplifier. It's kind of like it's like you're less than a JCM 800 kind of sound. It's not as high gain, but it gets you there.
I love a Hiwatt. But someday, you know, if and when I win the lottery, I shall definitely get one, you know.
Right. That's how I feel. You know, you got a lot of these guys out there that do these demos. They got like 10 grand worth of amps or more. And it's like, how do you do that? You know, like I got to raise my family and kids first, but I'm blessed that my wife lets me go out. And if I see something out there, I'm like, I got to get this, you know, she's like, how many can you play at the same time? I'm like, you can daisy chain all of them. Was that a trick question?
Yeah, I like it. Absolutely. And I think,
but then she gets me with the, you know, how many guitars can you play at the same time? I'm like, you know what? They're different flavors. You know, this one's tuned different. This one's got 52 strings on it. This has got 56. They're all different for tone. She's like, I hate the word tone because that means money.
Yeah, we're all after that elusive tone, aren't we? And my girlfriend, she's very supportive as well. And, you know, taking time to do these interviews and gigs and things like that. And I know when we first met and it was one of the very early dates, and she said, "Oh, she says you're playing bands. That sounds really exciting. I look forward to coming along and, you know, watching."
Sure.
And I said, "Yeah, the novelty wears off very quickly. You're carrying in gear and carrying out gear, and you're waiting to go on and stuff like that." So
absolutely,
you know, but that Randall sounds fantastic, and with your signature pedal, I know that demo you did, the first demo I saw of it. It really tightens up and focuses the tone. That was
100%.
That was the first thing I noticed, and even on sort of the recording. So, you know, it must be even more obvious when you're actually in the room and you're sat there. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Randall sounded fantastic, and then it just took the tone, tied it up, focused it, and it just sounded absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I like. That's what I like about it. That was with the Randall Diavolo, which is over here. The Randall Diavolo is very, very similar to the sounds you get from a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, the old Rev F series. Had the black diamond plate.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the Diavolo. It's obviously a lot more affordable too. Doesn't have all the other bells and whistles that Boogie has. Boogies are obviously a lot more professional, you know, recording standpoint, but the tones are richer, they're darker. I don't want to say muddy because my amp's not muddy. I get a killer tone out of that thing without a pedal at all, without an EQ in the loop or a PQ4 or anything, just the amp itself. I don't know. It has a lot to do with how you play, what pickups you're using, what speakers you're using. Yeah. But if I switch guitars that are a little warmer, I just bury the presence on the damn thing. But with that pedal, you're right. That amp's a much more robust, warmer tone.
Yeah.
And whether I use my signature pedal or some of these other drives I'm using, they really do make it more articulate, more defined, much more of a focused pick attack. And that's what I'm after. You know, these tones are popular these days, especially with modern metal. A lot of these guys playing the down-tuned stuff, they want a more focused, you know, sound that's a lot more articulate. But I've been after that sound since I was like 25 years old, because being a drummer, my bass drum, I was really particular about my bass drum, whether I was playing live or in the studio or just at home. It had to have this smack to it. I used wooden beaters. I used to duct tape silver dollars to the front of the drum head like Vinnie Paul from Pantera to just get this punching bag, punchy bass drum. So when I record stuff at home, I'm not as skilled with these guys with Pro Tools and Reaper and Ableton Live or whatever. I record the drum tracks myself. So if I'm doing a double kick pattern or just a straightforward single kick, you know, that's busy, and my guitar doesn't lock in with the kick as tight, I'm always trying to find a way to get a better tone out of the guitar so it's perfectly synced with that kick drum. With people doing the digital recording nowadays, the drums are almost so perfect because they're plugins and programmed drums or whatever. Those tones have gotten even more articulate over the years because people are so used to hearing perfection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listen to an old Zeppelin album or Black Sabbath or Blue Oyster Cult. These guys had to have the perfect take, the perfect performance, and the perfect tone. Nowadays, as technology's increased, so many people are used to that perfection. I still like the natural, you know, sounds that you get from, obviously, like when I record my own drum tracks and stuff like that, I'm recording to a click, but I'm not making it super perfect. It's still, you get a natural performance. I have to get a good take on drums before I do the guitar, and likewise on guitar. But it's still fun to get the tone as sharp and precision as you can get it. You know, like one of my favorite YouTubers. I got a lot of them. There's a lot of guys out there. But Jason Frankhauser is by far one of my personal favorites because he's been around for a long time. The guys ran, you know, front of house sound for years for bands. This guy knows tone as well. But he's also just an incredible, super talented guitarist. But when people talk about tight focus sounds and you hear all these other guys out there doing cool demos and stuff, when I hear his, he's not using post EQ like me. I don't use post EQ. Now he's using fancier microphones to get a more studio type sound where I'm using high-end microphones, but getting a room tone. That's where my niche is a little different. But Jason Frankhauser gets surgically tight sounding tones, you know, and he has the best adjectives when he does his demos. He's like, this next riff is punishing, you know. I'm like, I love that. I got to think of something like that. That's a great adjective, you know. So then I come up with a demo and I'm like, these next tones are pulverizing. You know, it's like everyone's got this word they throw out and it's funny, you know. But I had a guy from, I want to say the UK or Australia that had me cracking up the other day on my YouTube channel. He was commenting that he liked some of my tones and really enjoyed the amps I was using. And of course, any comment means a lot to me. I don't care if it's just a heart or a metal horn, but he was like, you're not going to get, what do they call it when you get commercials on your YouTube?
Adverts and things, or
monetized.
Oh, yes. That's
He's like, you're not going to get monetized saying bottom end and tight and all this. He's like, because it sound like sexual content. I'm like, dude, it's just tones, you know? But that was hilarious. You know, he's had a different angle on the adjective thing.
Yeah.
But yes, Jason Frankhauser is one of my favorites. I don't know if you watch his channel. His is called Killer Tone Texas.
Right.
Killer Tones.
I'll check that. Well, funny enough, I had a message last night from someone that said you're on about adjectives and using the right terminology and things like that. A guy messaged me last night and said, Silverfox guitars. He said, does that mean that you don't play anything post that 1988? And I was like,
right,
you cheeky git.
Right.
But it was quite funny. He was having a bit of banter with me, and it was quite funny. So, but I think you sell your channel very well. I think you come over very well. I think it's probably your job as a salesperson that definitely comes out.
Yeah, my personality probably shines a little bit. You know, I'm kind of it's really funny because when I'm home, I'm kind of I don't want to say quiet. I'm a chatterbox 100%, but I'm more toned down, you know, all clean cut. I don't have the spiked hair anymore with the ice tips and black. When I played live, I was a different person, you know what I mean? But now I'm all clean cut, and it's just really funny. You know, I come home and then I play the metal stuff, and even the kids laugh, you know, they're like, it's really funny. You're like a dad, but you're not upstairs playing dad rock. I'm like, you guys know the word dad rock? You know, they expect me to go up there and play some of my favorite, you know, Godsmack riffs or something or whatever. And it's like, I'm still up there playing just some of the heaviest thrash they've never even heard.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, is that a new song? Is that a cover? What are you working on? You know?
And what music are they into? Have they followed in your footsteps?
Kind of, but not really. My son's 13 now, and he kind of listens to everything from, um, oh, what is that band called? It's on the tip of my tongue. He really likes 21 Pilots.
Right.
He likes stuff like that, but he also likes 3-Day Grays or Third Day Grays and some other heavy acts. He likes Rage Against the Machine a little bit, you know, but he'll also listen to pop stuff on the radio. He'll listen to hip hop stuff on the radio. My daughter Gracie, she really likes, she's 100% country. See, I moved out here from Huntington Beach and Irvine, California 10 years ago. My wife Natalie, now my second wife, her and her daughter, they lived out in Tennessee for like 18 years or something, before she had her daughter. Obviously Gracie's 12 now, and she listens to country music, a little bit of pop stuff, but mostly she likes the country stuff.
Right.
You know, living in Nashville, I mean, there's some great country acts out here. I'm not a big fan of all of it. I like more of the bad boys of country, you know, like if you ever heard Brantley Gilbert,
Right,
or Jason Aldean, these guys are your more heavier, edgy country.
Yep.
But they like the classics, you know.
Yeah.
She does not like the heavy stuff. If I'm playing it in the car, she just looks at me like, why do you listen to someone screaming at you? I'm like, you get used to the growl thing. I'm listening to the riffs. Like, it's not always about the singing, you know, it's about the music behind it. It's like a machine, you know.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, turn the machine off, you know.
It's normally, it sounds like a bit of a role reversal in your household. So normally the teenagers are playing the louder the music, and the dads and the parents are playing the more mellow stuff.
Right.
And you've got the parents normally telling the kids to keep it down. But it sounds like you've got a little bit of role reversal going on there. That Gracie's like,
I think I'm going through a midlife crisis. Yeah, that's exactly right. My kids are either gaming or messing with their phones or playing with their friends outside and doing all that stuff. We try to keep it real, limit their electronic use. But yeah, it's loud up here when I'm doing demos or just jamming or writing.
Yeah. And what in the world of sort of modulation effects? I mean, what are you into?
I love modulations. I'm a big fan of delay. My favorite delay right now is the Earthquaker Devices Avalanche Run. It's like a mix between a verb and a delay. But I also use some more affordable lines of pedals that I hope to see them get more love, like CNZ Audio. Those are my guys right there. They took me to NAMM last summer, and they have a pedal I'm in love with called the CNZ Audio Tape Echo.
Right.
They have a couple other delays and modulated effects, but the Tape Echo, that should be a much more expensive pedal because the sounds I get out of it are phenomenal. It's almost like a, what was that pedal? It's kind of similar to, I don't know what to compare it to. It reminds me of the old Digitech FX9, if it was called that. It was a purple delay. I used to love that pedal. But since it's a tape echo, but it has a toggle, so you can get regular delay, tape echo type style, and then you got a clean version where it's a little bit more crisp and gives you a vibe from analog to digital delay.
Yeah.
Great little pedal, super tiny little mini micro pedal size, but it's phenomenal. I use that in a ton of my videos, especially if I'm not much of a solo guy. I'm mostly a rhythm guitarist, but sometimes in my demos, I'll tinker around with a few little leads to show people the sounds between the rhythm and treble switch on the humbuckers. And I'll use that tape echo just for some added ambience. You know, but I also like flangers and phasers, and you wouldn't think you use those a lot for metal, but just to create a dark luring undertone. You ever heard of Haunted Labs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Chris is he's a genius.
Yeah, spoke to Chris a few times.
Yeah, I have one of his pedals I got called the Dark Aura.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful reverb with just like these endless shimmering trails. It's insane how beautiful sounding that pedal is. I use that a lot on some of my own writings, not really just for demos. I did one demo for him just for fun. You know, I bought the pedal myself and just wanted to put it out there. But I use that a lot for creating like a real haunting undertone with a rhythm on top of it. You know, I got to write more music and start releasing stuff because I got so many ideas floating around my head. I just record them at home on this old 32 track board from Yamaha, and with the drums live hooked up, I just do it all at home. You know, it gets difficult at sometimes because I'm doing everything. I'm drumming, I'm playing bass, I'm playing guitar, I'm doing the ear candy with a keyboard. You know, I got some apps on my phone for some old Korg Karma effects and stuff. But yeah, I love modulated effects just for the ambient vibe. I don't really just play them solo for writing a song that way, but I do use them for layering a lot. You know, whether it's just big, beautiful chords blooming with an effect on there. Sometimes I like to create a Frankenstein and link them all together, which sometimes is a no-no. You know, people are like, oh, you don't want to run all that stuff at once. But, you know, like I said, I'm 42 years old. I've never been a, you know, signed artist or anything, but I've played in a lot of bands and been to recording studios since I was 15 years old, in and out of major studios in Orange County, and working with some big producers and stuff. And daisy chaining pedals like that is how it's done. Sometimes I link my reverb with my tape echo with something else, you know what I mean? And when you dial it in right and drop your volumes back, sometimes you can get a tone that sounds like a pedal that's never even been made yet. You're like, what did I just find? You know, and you've got to capture that stuff on tape and remember what you did. I'll use tape or white out and put little notches, you know, that way if I change the notch later, I can just wipe the powder off. So white out works for doing some little, but I love using all sorts of effects.
Well, funny enough, when you were saying that you're doing a lot of the stuff yourself, you're writing, you're playing the drums, and I was just made a note about the bass. So I was going to ask you, Steve, about you do the bass yourself. But when you're recording the bass, are you using effects for that, or are you just straight into the desk or straight into the amp?
That's a great question, actually. It'd be nice to get better bass tones. I don't have a huge recording setup here, but I have a lot. I'm blessed to have what I have. But when I record the bass, I actually use an old Black Star amp.
Right.
I go into the Black Star. It's got a setting called, it's like a dirty clean. It adds just a pinch of saturation to the clean tone.
Yep.
And the preamp I'm using that's hooked up to my Yamaha 32 channel little work studio desk is beautiful. So I get a great bass tone that way, but I don't use a lot of effects on bass unless I'm writing really, sometimes I write really progressive stuff that kind of covers the palette of bands like Tool and A Perfect Circle and Alice in Chains. So sometimes I'll use a little bit of a slap echo on the bass just to kind of give it a feel like it's a second guitar. So when I'm doing my guitar stuff around it, sometimes I write things that are in, you know, 7/8 or, 6/4 or in 5, or sometimes they're not crazy odd signatures, but they're odd enough that having an effect on the bass like that really opens up its dimension and its spatial, the amount of space that it's taking up, you know. So I do like to use a little bit of effect on the bass, but I've never used like reverbs or flangers or phasers on my bass yet. It'd probably be fun. It'd probably be a good idea, right? Some really trippy stuff, but usually I just kind of like to get a good solid warm bass tone. And it might sound funny, but with a lot of my writings, what I learned growing up, I don't know if you knew this from the last time we spoke, but I went to high school also with the band Thrice. All of them went to my junior high and high school. They're a huge punk rock band back in the day. And bass is one of the loudest things that should be in your mix. A lot of times it gets covered up or it's put in the background, you know. Now it doesn't need to be so forefront that it's all you hear, you know, unless you're a funk band where it really needs to, like Chili Peppers and stuff. Flea's got to shine, you know. But when I used to mix earlier on and was getting comfortable with recording at home and mic placement and stuff like that, I would always put the bass like in the distance. I was like, oh, it's all got to be the guitars up front. You got to hear those panned hard rhythms coming at you. And I'd send it to some of my friends that worked in major recording studios, you know, in California. They're like, man, it's a really great mix, but why'd you drop the bass so low? I'm like, wow, the kick drum and the, the guitar. And I was like trying to sound like I know what I'm doing. They're like, no, that bass should be up there. So if you're listening to it in your car, you get that stomach feeling that the bass is in there. I was like, that's funny. I never thought of it that way. And then they're like, you know, producers are like, think of it as a landscape. If you're looking at a landscape, where do you want the waterfall? Where do you want the trees? Where do you want the sky and the clouds? Like, think of mixing as bringing things forward and back and to the sides and creating a musical soundscape. And so early on, I learned that. Now I'm 42 years old. And I really need to learn the freaking Pro Tools and Reaper stuff, because I got a laptop now and I'm getting an interface soon. But I still use this 32 track board because it's funny. It's such an old school approach, but my whole drum set's mic'd up.
Yeah.
If I get an interface, I don't know if I can do that. I'll have to get the huge interface, you know, it's like, you know, $3,000 or something. But I have everything hooked up with high-end mics, really nice stuff on my kit. The kick mic alone is $600, you know? So when I come up with an idea, I write so fast, you know, sometimes I get these ideas so fast, I don't really have the time to learn to program the drums and clip this and edit this and add that and take away this. I just sit down, I play it. Then I grab my guitar and I play guitar on top of it. Then I add bass, then I add this, then I do the ear candy. And then I'm like, shit, now I got to mix everything. Because I just recorded it dry, because I know I'm getting a great tone where the mics are placed. You know, that's something I learned early on in studios too. Like I said, I was always a drummer, but I was always fascinated with, as I grew up playing guitar and stuff like that, going into these studios, I talked to them about why would you put the mic there? Why don't you put it here? And because I didn't know, and I'm learning, you know, this is when I was like in my 20s, and I'm seeing how they're getting room tones. I'm seeing how they're miking close range. And when I started recording myself, I learned all these little tricks of how they do that stuff. So I'm doing that in this little room up here. I don't even know how big this room is.